Hello everyone, it's me Okrijan. Today I am going to read S4 4086 Climate Change by Barnaby Newbold. Chapter 5 Extreme Weather. Something is happening to our weather. There have been big floods and long drought, strong winds and big storms in the past. The past is full of examples of extreme weather. Difference is that now extreme weather is happening more often. Let's look at some examples. In France, during the month of August 2003, nearly 15,000 people died because of the hot weather. The problem was not just that it was hot, but that it was so hot for so long. Weather like this is called a heat wave. In Paris, the temperature during the day was about 35 degrees Celsius for 9 days. And on 25th August, the temperature during the night did not fall below 25 degrees Celsius. Temperatures as high as this are unusual in France. People were not ready for days and days of very hot weather. Most of the people who died were old people, and half of them died in nursing homes. Most of the rest died at home, and only a few got to a hospital. At the beginning, the French government did not understand this problem. People don't come into hospital with the words dying of heat on their forehead, and says Stephanie Grossier, speaking for the French government. Why did the hot weather happen? We know what happened. The Mediterranean Sea became very warm in May, and the months of June and July were unusually hot. But we do not know exactly why it happened, and we think that this problem is going to get worse. Scientists now think that these heat waves will increase during the 21st century. They think that in Central Europe, the west of the US, and East Asia, heat waves will last perhaps 2 days longer than they do now. Heat waves are not the only things that are changing. Hurricanes, also called cyclones or typhoons in some parts of the world, are windstorms that start in the oceans. They can only start when the sea temperature goes above 27 degrees Celsius. When they move across the sea, they need more warm water in order to grow. If they move across cold water, they get weaker. If they move across warmer water, they get stronger. In 2004, the year after the heat wave in France, there were a lot of hurricanes. Japan had 10, and the US had 5. For both countries, this was the largest number of big storms in one year. It was also in 2004 that Brazil had Hurricane Carolina, the first hurricane to start in the South Atlantic Ocean. But the following year, 2005, was the year that got into newspapers around the world. This was the year of Hurricane Katrina, which killed more than 1,800 people and destroyed hundreds of homes in New Orleans and southern USA. Katrina was a strong hurricane, but it was not the strongest hurricane of all. There was Hurricane Wilma, which also happened in 2005. Wilma passed across Mexico, Cuba, and Florida, killing more than 60 people and destroying hundreds of buildings. There are 5 categories of hurricane. From a Category 1 hurricane, which moves at 120 kilo per hour, to Category 5, which Category 5 hurricane at more than 250 kilometers per hour. The Katrina and Wilma were both Category number 5 hurricanes. Since 1970, we have had about the same number of hurricanes every year, but the number of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes has increased from 20% to 35%. Hurricanes are getting stronger. Chapter 6, Slow or Sudden Change. How quickly will our climate change? This is an important question to ask, but it is very difficult to answer. The science of climate change did not begin long ago. We did not know until 1837 about the ice ages of the past. It was a Swiss scientist, Louis Agassiz, who first thought of ice ages. He found some deep cuts in the stones of the Alps. How did they get there? His answer was that glaciers made them. Glaciers that melted a long time ago. The scientists began to think about the ice ages of the past. How did they begin? How did they end? First, they looked at changes from outside the Earth. They looked at the sun and the Earth's orbit around the sun. and many scientists try to measure the Earth's orbit. A scientist from Serbia, Milutin Milankovic, made the final measurements about 100 years ago. The Earth's orbit changes in three different ways, he said. The first change takes about 22,000 years. The second change takes about 41,000 years. And the third takes about 100,000 years. These changes either bring the Earth closer to the Sun or they take it further away from the Sun. So change from outside the Earth does not happen quickly. Then they looked at changes from inside the Earth. These changes are much harder to measure because there are so many different things to look at. For example, the air, the sea, the ice, and the wind. You need big computers to make these measurements. But the work of scientists like Arrhenius and Killing taught us something new. Change from inside the Earth can happen more quickly, perhaps in hundreds of years. We now know that climate change has happened even more quickly than this. Scientists have looked at ice from deep holes in Greenland. It came from the end of the ice last age, more than 12,000 years ago. We found a very sudden change in temperature, a change of more than 10 degrees Celsius in less than 50 years. How could a big change like this happen so quickly? We do not know the answer to this question, but we do know that climate change is sometimes quick and sometimes slow. Think about this. What happens when you try to push a car along a road? If the road is flat, you can push the car slowly along the road. If the road goes down a hill, you push the car and it runs away faster and faster. Soon, you don't need to push the car at all. It keeps getting faster and you cannot stop it. Many scientists think that we have now arrived at the top of a hill. We have changed the climate and the car is starting to go down the hill. It'll be difficult to stop. Sudden change can happen in many ways. It is one example. There is a lot of ice in Greenland and it is melting. If lots of cold fresh water comes into the North Atlantic, it will slow down the Gulf Stream. And when this happens, the Gulf Stream will stop carrying heat to Europe. This has happened before, a long time ago. If it happens again, it could mean very low temperatures for Europe, the opposite of a heat wave. We could see frozen rivers and icy streets in Europe, and it could happen quite soon. Perhaps climate change will be slow, but perhaps it'll be sudden. Does anyone know? Do scientists agree? We will look at this in the next chapter. Chapter 7. How bad will it get? Climate change is a global problem. All the world's governments need to work together to find answers to the problem. But they must first look at three important questions. What is happening and why? What can we do about the changes that are happening now and in the future? What can we do to put less CO2 into the atmosphere? In 1988, the United Nations agreed to work on this problem with the World Meteorological Organization, which studies the world's weather. They asked a group of people called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to answer the three questions. The IPCC made three working groups, and they gave each group one of the three questions to answer. By 2007, the IPCC had written 4 reports. Each report is made by more than 100 scientists from many different countries. Before each report is ready, more than 1,000 other scientists read it, and make changes to it. Because of all this work, most scientists, most governments agree with the report. They don't answer all the questions because they don't know all the answers, but they give us the best answers for now. IPCC used 19 different computer models from scientists around the world to make pictures of the world's climate in the future. Each model measured the climate change in a different way, so the answers from the computer models were, of course, different in some ways, but they agreed on some important changes. We will look at just 2 of these changes. In the 21st century, the sea level will rise by between 28 and 43 centimeters. In the 21st century, the Earth will become warmer by between 1.8 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius. Let's look at the first change. What will happen if the sea rises this much? The sea is already rising. It rose by nearly 20 centimeters during the 21st century. In 2006, small island called Lohakara at the mouth of the Ganges River in India went under the sea. Lohakara is the first inhabited island to disappear under the sea. But there are other inhabited islands that are in danger. The Maldives in the Indian Ocean, the Marshall Islands and Tuvalu in the Pacific Ocean. And it's not only islands that are in danger. More than 300 billion people around the world live in places that are less than 1 meter above sea level. In Bangladesh, half the country is less than 5 meters above sea level. There are floods every year during the monsoon, and many people die when the floods are bad. If the sea rises by 45 centimeters, Bangladesh will lose 15,000 square kilometers of land, and the homes of 5 million people will be in danger. Now let's look at the second change. What will happen if the Earth gets nearly 2 degrees Celsius warmer? We have already looked at some of the dangers. Longer heat waves, bigger storms with a heavier rain and stronger wind. And there are other dangers too. More people, perhaps 90 to 200 million more people across the world will become ill from malaria and other diseases. A lot of water will become dirty from floods. So there will be less clean water for people to drink. Many fish and other animals will be in danger. But the biggest danger is like this. Think about the car running down the hill. Think about the ice in Greenland and Antarctica. Sometimes think that a temperature rise of 22 degrees Celsius will melt all the ice in Greenland during the next century. That'll increase the sea level by 7 meters. The end for the part 2.